How is the elimination of cash bail in Illinois going since it took effect on Monday? Listen up, suburbs. Thought the problems of Cook County would never be visited upon me. McHenry County, much to the chagrin of McHenry County State's Attorney Patrick Kennelly, two individuals were released that his office argued shouldn't have been. One was a 19-year-old who was arrested Monday and charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and unlawful use of a blackjack knife. This 19-year-old pulled a gun on a Metra conductor. The incident occurred while he was on a train in Crystal Lake inbound to Chicago. The conductor had asked the accused to leave the train after a confrontation with other passengers. After he pulled the gun, he fled the scene. Police unable to locate the gun, but did find a switchblade. Two misdemeanor charges filed against him, both non-detainable offenses, released. Second defendant released Tuesday after he was charged with possession of a controlled substance, a Class 4 felony, but non-detainable. They found him outside a gas station banging his head against the wall in possession of a small amount of fentanyl.
Oh, boy.
He had been arrested 20 times, including 6 times for felony offenses and 3 times for drug-related offenses. He previously served 10 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections for residential burglary. Released. Think he'll do something wrong again?
Yeah, odds are pretty good in his favor that he's going to commit another crime, yes.
Nonviolent offenses. So he's
That's what
just
they
high.
say.
He's just high on drugs, banging his head against the wall. The kid just pulled a gun. He didn't hurt anybody. Nonviolent. You pull a gun on somebody, you think that that person is ready for violence? Or a
And
knife?
when you're hopped up on drugs, too, you do things out of character, and you do whatever you can to feed your addiction.
20 times, 6 times for felony offenses, served 10 years in IDOC for residential burglary. Walking the streets in McHenry County or wherever they are now. It's going to get interesting. One other case before we get to our next guest. Calvin Ushery in Wilmington, Delaware. You may remember this one because the video of the robbery and beating at this jewelry store in Wilmington, Delaware went viral because of its brutal nature. This guy comes into this jeweler's and pulls a gun on him, pistol whips him, gets behind the counter where the guy's now on the ground, kicks him, hits him again. The guy gets up, older Korean gentleman. He's, blood all over him. The report is, according to prosecutors, he's still recovering from his injuries from that beating a year later. Here's the ABC affiliate in Wilmington reporting on what happened at trial.
Tonight, a jury could not reach a verdict in a brutal attack and robbery of a Wilmington jewelry store owner. Calvin Ushery was on trial for various charges, including robbery and assault. After 2 days of deliberations, a mistrial was declared. This surveillance video was shown during the trial coming up right here. Prosecutors argued Ushery violently attacked the owner of Solid Gold Jewelers back in September of last year. The owner was so badly beaten he underwent months of rehabilitation. Prosecutors plan to retry the case.
Ushery is black. The store owner, Korean, as I mentioned. The reporting on the trial, the defense attorney for Ushery said, basically, yeah, he did it, but he's not responsible because he's a victim of society. Hung jury.
That was his defense, and it was a hung jury.
Hung jury.
Sickening.
So here we go again. Even without the non-prosecution, decarceration prosecutors and politicians, now because of the race hustlers, you have people sitting in jury boxes looking at the racial composition of criminal and victim and making determinations on making determinations, guilt or innocence, based on racial considerations rather than behavioral ones. That's not a good place, I don't think. For more on this and other matters, pleased to be joined by Bob Woodson, founder and president of the Woodson Center, author of Red, White, and Black, Rescuing American History from Revisionists and Those Race Hustlers I just spoke of. And, oh, by the way, I understand that the curriculum that Bob Woodson and people like Ian Rowe, we've had on the show before as well, their lessons on Black history and excellence have been downloaded now more than 110,000 times. 25 topics, both high school and K through 8, all free with registration from the Woodson Center website. So, a great content production from the Woodson Center that runs counter to what you're getting from the 1619 Project and most of the rest of the media and academia and the other cultural and civic institutions. Bob, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure to be with you, Dan.
So, what about this? I mean, it's one thing when you have politicians being funded by ideologues to undermine the justice system from their professional perches. It's another thing when you start to have the citizenry go along with it.
It really is, and this pattern of racial nullification, even in criminal cases, has got a pattern that started 10 or 15 years ago, and it adversely affects the most vulnerable, and those that are the people living in those communities in there. But the way to change it is interesting. In Minneapolis, Minnesota, one of the staunchest opponents of the police and nullified that she's a member of city council. She also got the funding cut and was a strong opponent of police. Well, last week, she got radicalized because she was savagely beaten by 4 young black men in front of her children. And now the only people who saved her were the police. And now she's calling for law and order. She's demanding that they be arrested. She's calling them, they're running wild. It's unfortunate that this hypocrisy on the part of these leaders can only be challenged when something happens personally to them.
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean, literally. I mean, we used to liberal. What did I think it was Buckley that came up with the phrase that a neocon is a liberal who's been mugged by reality. He meant that. He meant that rhetorically. But it's taking physically before you sort of confront reality, at least for those on the defund, decarceration, non-prosecution side.
Yeah, just like Nike, they had their comeuppance because they had to close their flagship store in Portland, Oregon, because there were so many thefts. Remember, they were the ones who supported Colin Kaepernick,
right?
And his vehement opposition to police. So, what we're finding though, Dan, is that we have a group called Voices of Black Mothers United.
Yeah,
they are the ones who are giving voice to that 80% of Black Americans do not support defund the police. They do not support it, and because many of these businesses that are like in Chicago are pulling out, and on these blue cities. Businesses are pulling out because of their violence. They're not just these box stores, but there are people in places like Minnesota, in Milwaukee, a woman who owned a hairdresser for 35 years, a pillar of the community. Her business was burned down, and others like it. And so, but the people who are giving voice to those that are unheard, they're the ones that we're trying to put forward, and they are the ones who have to speak out and stop this kind of nullification of juries and nullification of race.
Yeah,
what we're confronting now is worse than anything that happened in the '60s during Jim Crow.
Right.
Well, I want to, since promoting the positive. Here's a good example too of people to promote. It seems to me. And I know you'll appreciate this because I know you're a Philadelphia guy. This restaurant called Jim's West in West Philly, which is apparently a popular cheesesteak place. Apparently they have.
Jim's.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jim's.
he knows it.
Yeah. So Jim's West just reopened, but they reopened with a little bit of a wrinkle. They got ex-military or former military or off-duty police outside in vests with sport rifles providing security. And listen to the ABC affiliate there in Philadelphia covering the story. First, you're going to hear from the owners of Jim's West, who are black gentlemen, black entrepreneurs, and then some of the customers, and then the guard himself.
Residents are thrilled the original Jim's West Steaks in West Philadelphia is back in business.
Thank you.
But this time, customers can expect to see armed agents out front.
The violence has spiked. It goes up and down. You want people to feel safe and to be safe, so when they come out and eat, they don't have to worry about no type of harm.
Our lines are down the block, so while you standing here in line, connecting with other people that you may not know, we got security right here just to keep you guys safe.
The owners hope their presence prevents crimes.
It's not just myself. It usually be other agents who's sworn and certified through the state of Pennsylvania to do security work when they're off duty from doing what they're doing. All of us are former military, police, law enforcement background.
Other business owners have hired armed agents too, including the Carco gas station in North Philadelphia.
As a business, if you want to secure your business and you want to make sure everybody's safe, you got to spend that extra money.
While some customers support the enhanced security,
Safety and good food is always a plus.
If it deters it, I can't complain, I guess. But, I'm not exactly a big fan of guns, but I get it.
Others think it's not necessary outside of Jim's West.
Now, North Philly, where that gas station is, where the guys out there with a machine gun, I can understand that. But here, it's a little overkill. Even if you just had an armed guard, okay, but just walking around with a machine gun, it's not family friendly.
I'm here to protect you. I'm not here to, cause any trouble or be that guy with the rifle.
Well, first of all, it's not a machine gun. And secondly, Bob, get your reaction to that and what that says about the leadership, the political leadership of Philadelphia, that business owners feel compelled to do this.
Well, I have a T-shirt that I said, "Too old to fight, too old to run, not too old to shoot a gun."
You'd fit right in there at Jim's. Yeah, right.
But you'd feel comfortable going to gym.
I really think, there's instances in Louisiana, for instance, when there was a big fight at the high school and some fathers decided, it's called Dads on Duty. They just took over the school. These dads gathered up other dads in the community, and they went in and took over this high school. They've been occupying it and made it safe. That's the kind of spontaneous response that we have to generate around this country. It's just like in Ferguson, of the 51 people who were arrested for rioting, only one was from Ferguson.
Right.
And the stores that didn't get robbed, they were protected by two young black men with automatic weapons. They did not get robbed or looted. And so I just think there's got to be some kind of spontaneous response from the community suffering the problem. And if this is what it takes, this is what it takes. But the people suffering the problem must be given an opportunity to protect themselves in ways that are very creative and inventive. Since the liberal prosecutors are going to keep releasing these criminals, citizens who are suffering the problem have to take matters into their own hands, unfortunately. And I'm really pleased to see my hometown of Philly, Jim's. I expect to go there in a couple of weeks to make sure I give my support to him.
There you go.
That's great. Now, Mr. Woodson, I don't know if you've heard, but Chicago, our new mayor, wants to have state-run grocery stores instead of a solution to the crime crisis, because there are food deserts, because Walmart shut down 3 stores because of high crime and they were, hemorrhaging cash. What's your thought on that?
They can't even run the government. How are they going to run a store? That's just ridiculous. The same challenges that are faced by experienced retailers will be faced by government. Government has no talent, no skill or ability to do what the private sector can't do. Why not just protect the stores of those who know how to run a store? I cannot imagine a government, particularly in Chicago, setting up a store and pricing it. What did work, I can tell you, in one city that we supported was Pathmark store set up a store that was supported by a group of a drug alcohol treatment program, a Christ-centered program And all of the workers were recruited who were ex-offenders and ex-drug addicts from this program, and they made it safe to the point where that store outperformed all other stores in the white suburban community. That's because responsible community leaders that had moral authority were the ones who recruited. Pilferage was down, absenteeism was non-existent. So communities have resources within if we can just think creatively about taking some of those indigenous resources. Once a person's character changes, once you become an ex something, then your characteristic has an advantage. And I believe people who were part of the problem, who become transformed and redeemed, they can play a critical role in promoting peace in these communities because they have the moral authority, they have the trust, and they have the influence. We just got to look at them as a resource.
He is Bob Woodson, founder and president of the Woodson Center. That's woodsoncenter.org, the website, where you can download the Black History and Excellence curriculum. That's both for high school as well as K through 8. So woodsoncenter.org there. Also the book, Red, White, and Black, Rescuing American History from Revisionists and Race Hustlers. Bob, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan and Amy.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago.